All right, we're live again with the Daily Parks and Rec Show. We have a guest from Texas, Kevin Browne. He's the Park and Rec Director over city of Katy, Texas. Um, let me tell you a little bit about the show. We air every day, weekdays, 12 noon, to highlight people just like Kevin, their career, how they got into Parks and Rec, their journey, and then kind of the state of the union of their current park systems and what they're planning on doing it. And then a special treat. He is really active in the TRAPS, which is the Texas State Association for Parks and Rec, and he came up through. Was it YPN? Correct.
It used to be. It's Future and Young Professionals now.
Okay, Future Young Professionals. Is that what you said?
Future and Young Professionals. Yes, sir.
Awesome. Well, how has your week been going so far?
It's been very busy, but good. And thank you for having me on today. I appreciate the offer to come on here and talk Parks and Rec.
Yeah, I appreciate it. You know, Texas is a whole different flavor of Parks and Rec that I don't think a lot of people in the rest of the country understand. In general, the South is just so sports focused, football, baseball, and then Texas is probably the flagship. I know Alabama and Mississippi and Louisiana, Florida would probably hate hearing me say that, but y'all just go ham on Texas on sports. And if you haven't been to talk about a really good state association, it's almost like a mini national conference, similar to Illinois, California, Florida. Texas has just got a really good state conference. Now, you've been going to that one for a while, haven't you?
Yes, I've been a member of TRAPS since about 2011. And yeah, I've attended pretty much every state conference, maybe missed one in that time since then. Yeah, we got a great network of professionals across the state. We've seen some incredible growth in terms of membership and people being involved and showing up at the state conference. And then, of course, being as geographically large as we are, we have 5 different regions. So a lot of times, even if you can't make it to the state conference, your region will have some quarterly meetings or a regional conference, get that opportunity to get together if you can't make it to the state conference. But if you get the opportunity to come to the TRAPS State Conference and Institute, I highly recommend it. It is incredible production and value for continuing education, networking, and just seeing some incredible things from the vendors that are out there as well.
Yeah. Now, do you happen to know when and where the next one is?
Yes. Next one is this February. I think it's the 24th through the 28th.
Okay.
And it is going to be in Allen, Texas, up in DFW. Last I heard, I think we are sold out, which is great in terms of being able to fill our hotel commitments and filling up that conference center. But I know there's some volunteer opportunities as well if you can't make it for the full time, since it's kind of sold out. But I know they're always looking for volunteers that can come and help out for a day or two, and that's a great way to get involved as well if you can't attend the full conference.
Yeah, I'd love to try to attend as the Daily Parks and Rec Show. I'm getting ready to attend Mississippi's next week. I didn't realize it was so close. So that's literally what, 3 weeks from now?
Yep, it's quick approaching, and we usually do ours in kind of that late February, early March, sometime in February timeframe usually. So.
Okay, I might have to, if I can pull it off, I might have to see who I would contact to do the podcast from the show.
Yeah. There'll probably be a line of people that'd be happy to jump on and talk Parks and Rec out there.
Yeah.
If you get to the state conference.
Alabama happened the exact same way. The week before, one of my good friends says, "You're coming to the Alabama conference," and I'm like, "Yeah, when is it?" And he's like, "This weekend." I moved heaven and earth, and I just drove there with all of my equipment, set up in like the pastry and coffee section, and it was amazing. Like,
awesome.
And so,
if I can pull it off, to catch people too, yeah, gotta have that coffee.
All right, so let's go a little bit into your background. Maybe even go back to high school, so we see what kind of person. And actually, I think that's really important. Maybe even your childhood, because we are trying to raise awareness to high school kids, juniors and seniors that are considering where they're going to go to college, what kind of degree they're going to pursue, what kind of career they want to have. That's when they're making those what's my future life going to look like decisions. And so I think it's important for them to kind of see who you were as a child in high school and where your head was. And so that way they can say, well, I'm a lot like Kevin, and he took this career path. So what did your high school look like?
Well, as you mentioned, in Texas, we're sports crazed, and in my high school was very similar. I was a athlete, soccer, track, cross country, tennis, golf. I played a little bit of football, played basketball through my church growing up. And so growing up, even before high school, I was involved with sports and also a little unique. My dad was a Parks and Recreation director growing up. So I kind of, by default, was always involved in being at the rec center for summer camps or being at the park when we got events going on. I didn't really anticipate going into it as my career until I got to college, but it's always been there in the background. And I think for a lot of people, whether they realize it or not, parks are you do play a really important role in their development as a youth. If they have access to be able to go out and be outside and engage in some structured play with their friends, do some competitive sports or whatever it is, or just go out there and explore nature, just be outside, play on a playground. I think that all, maybe it's not always in the forefront of their mind, but it does play an effect in how they develop as young professionals and young adults, and what their hobbies are going to be as they get older. But yeah, I was a super sports crazy kid in high school, involved in pretty much every sport I could be involved in and still pass my classes. So,
right. Which were your sports again?
Soccer was my number one sport. So soccer for sure. And then I played tennis, track, cross country, golf.
What'd you do in track?
Track, I was long distance. I did
a
mile and 2 mile.
I knew it. I had some friends that were in soccer, and they played those two side positions, but they were also two of our best cross country runners because they put in the miles in a soccer game.
And I'll just tell you right now, I don't run now. I still play soccer in adult league, but I'm not running unless I'm chasing the ball. So
yeah,
that was just a means to an end in high school. But I enjoyed it. It was a great time, and like I said, obviously, that kind of fed my passion to stay involved in sports when I went to college, and got involved with campus recreation through intramural sports as a participant, but also that was like my first job in college was a intramural sports official. So not only playing the sport, but also reffing it, and then just kind of working up my way up from there to being a supervisor over that specific sport, helping train the new officials, and then become a site supervisor where we're overseeing and putting people on the field based on their level of capability and the level of league that they're going to be reffing. And so that's kind of what I stuck with when I was at A&M. So.
Now, what was your thought process when you were, say, a junior in high school? Did you ever consider Parks and Recreation as a degree? Or
so at that time, I really wasn't. And my dad, he never really pushed it on me at all. He kind of just was like, hey, something to consider while you're thinking about it. Parks and Rec, it's great. It's a great career, And but when I was kind of looking at majors, I was really focusing more on being like a coach, doing education, doing high school coaching soccer, football. And then I went to my student orientation the summer before I started at A&M, and I ended up, and I also was very passionate about animals growing up, and just always watching documentaries on wildlife. And so I actually started my major as a wildlife fishery science major, because I thought it was like a great way to kind of blend thing that I was passionate about, which is animals and being outside. And then I was going to kind of do education as my minor. And then after about a year into it, I flipped it around, and I'd taken a couple Parks and Rec classes just as some electives, and really got into it and kind of decided that's the route I wanted to go. And so I switched over to recreation, park, and tourism science, and never looked back.
Man, and what year were you, or what semester were you, or had you already?
I think it was my freshman year, spring semester. I had taken a couple of of those elective Parks and Rec classes, and I was doing the campus recreation. And I was like, I think it just makes more sense if I switch over from wildlife fisheries science to RPTS, or as we called it at A&M, rather play than study. So
yeah,
that was
that's a good one.
Good acronym that we had for our major at the time.
So and now, what year did you graduate? What year did you go to college then?
So I graduated high school in 2004, and I finished at A&M in 2008 with my bachelor's in science and recreation park tourism science. And because I was so involved for the 4 years I was there with campus recreation, I'd worked my way up. I was working in the office doing basically the highest level of student worker at the time could be in the campus rec department for intramural sports. And I had some really good mentors that were grad assistants for intramural sports at the time that were like, hey, what's your plan when you graduate? And I hadn't really thought about it. And it was coming up on my, last year of college, going into my senior year. And they were like, you should really consider going to grad school and doing the grad assistant route. And, it's a great opportunity to continue education and get some experience, get paid. And so I started to pursue that grad assistant for intramural sports opportunity, and ended up getting the opportunity to go to Sam Houston State just down the road. So short trip, and pursue my continuing education there and get my master's degree in kinesiology. Worked for the campus rec department there for a couple of years, overseeing intramural sports, and it was a great 2 years, great time to just continue on, not have to take that break in between undergrad and come back later on in life. So it just worked out like perfectly.
And you said that was at Sam Houston?
That was at Sam Houston State.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I went there. Funny story. I used to be a Kentucky cheerleader, and UCA,
Really?
yeah, they recruited me to teach their college and high school camps across the country. And our training week was at Sam Houston. And I'd never seen, 5,000 screaming high school girls and high school cheerleaders and stuff. But that was, it was a beautiful campus, though.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it there. All right. So then after graduation, what did it look like for you? Your bachelor, did you go straight out of,
I went straight from undergrad and
Okay.
got my master's pretty much right away. So 2010 was when I graduated from Sam Houston. Of course, that's right when we were in the midst of the Great Recession. And trying to find jobs at that time was like pulling teeth.
Oh, yeah. Hey, thank God for that Great Recession. It gave birth to Bitcoin, which is another passion of mine. But the only good thing I think came out.
Usually there's something good that comes out of
Right.
bad things. So I'm glad it worked out in that regard. But
yeah, that was about it.
Trying to find a campus recreation job at that time was very difficult, because not only in the campus industry at that time, everyone had a master's degree. Everyone that was trying to become, a young professional, start their actual professional career, you had to have a master's degree to work in higher ed and campus rec at that time. And so coming out with, I had the 2 years of grad assistant experience, but some of the people I was going up against, had been in the industry for 5-10 years. So that's when, my dad was like, hey, you got the degree. There's always municipal government. They're always looking for good professionals to do parks and recreation.
He's selling hard.
He never like really pushed me hard on it, but it was always there in the background. Like, hey, you always have a fallback plan. So
that's right.
And I appreciate that. He never really like shoved it down my throat or anything, but it was always like, hey, there's always a backup plan. There's always, and of course, he had been in the industry for, I think he retired after 35 years. So at that time, he had served as the president of TRAPS. He had served as president of the Texas Amateur Athletic Federation. He knew everybody across the state. And so when I started to apply for jobs, he was really good about, hey, you might want to reach out to this person ahead of time and kind of get the lay of the land, just talk to them about what to expect, what do you need to know. Not doing the job. He wasn't making the phone calls behind closed doors saying, hey, get my son an interview. But he was like, hey, here's the person. I'm going to give you their information. They're going to talk to you if you call them, but it's up to you to make the call, take the initiative. And ultimately that's going to, show them that you're really hungry to learn more about the organization and hopefully get hired there. And so it all worked out. I got a job with the city of Bel Air in 2011. So started off as lowest on the rung in the rec division as a rec specialist, closing the facilities at night. But it was a great experience to get back into that, facility management, overseeing some programs, overseeing some vendors, obviously working with all of the staff, overseeing the front desk and all the people that were coming in every day for the different programs and activities. And that's what kind of started my career here in municipal government. So
what are some of the things, I mean, I love your journey going all the way through the master's program. You were a full-time student up until that point, right?
Yep.
Okay. So here you've gotten, I mean, outside of a PhD, but pretty much all you can get from the university side. And now you're thrown into helping, manage a park system. What were some of the lessons that you picked up in those early days that I guess you didn't learn in college? And then also, what were the lessons in college that applied?
So I think the biggest learning curve going from campus recreation to the municipal side is just it's two completely different systems, right? And the campus side, they had money. If we wanted to do a new program, start a new sport, you could pretty much do it. And there wasn't going to be a whole lot of roadblocks or bureaucracy or whenever a new trend came on, like, pickleball in the last few years has really blown up. If I was in college when that was going on and we wanted to start an intramural pickleball league, we could have just done it pretty much immediately as soon as we had the court space to do it. When you get to the municipal side of things, especially as a young professional, if you haven't worked in that type of environment before, it can be a little bit unsettling to go from, hey, we have an idea, we want to do it, and you just get the approval and do it, to here's politics, here's some bureaucracy, here's red tape, here's the laws that you have to follow in order to make sure that we're, following procurement or contacting the correct amount of vendors before we have them bid on the job. There's just certain processes in the government side that you kind of have to learn as you go. You can't just, it was a learning curve in terms of me just learning patience, and I have all these ideas I want to do and why can't we do them? And then you got to learn the why. Here's the processes, here's the legal, here's the bureaucratic side, here's some background political thing that you would have never known, but there's one person that's kind of holding this thing up because it's not in line with what they're trying to do with their political aspirations. So that kind of stuff is the biggest learning curve. Is just there's going to be some roadblocks that you're not necessarily prepared for. But you just work through them and understand that sometimes the process just takes a little bit longer when you work in the government sector. So
yeah, that is quite a shock. I remember when I got into Parks and Recreation, just as I manufactured explosion-proof lights for heavy industry, and there was some red tape there to get your product inside of a big chemical plant or something. But when I started working with government and procurement and stuff like that, it was a whole nother level of.
Oh yeah.
Now the good news is once you understood the system, but for the first timer to experience the amount of checks and balances and red tape and people that have to sign off on the smallest project, it's like it's shocking.
It can be frustrating, and I think that's one of the things over the years as I've hired on new staff and onboarded new people that haven't come from the municipal side, is you kind of have to have that conversation with them early on to make sure that they don't get disenfranchised, because it can be real easy for someone to come in and be like, it feels like we can't do anything. So just kind of explaining that process and, hey, just have a little bit of patience. We'll work through it. There's a way that we can make this happen. It just may not happen on the timeline that you had, kind of imagined it would happen in your head when you came up with it. But
yeah, it just takes a whole lot of patience. And
absolutely.
Patience and perseverance. Those two
Absolutely.
things go a long way. All right. So now When did you start getting involved in traps after graduation? Or were you involved in that at all before, just through your father?
So when I was in college and when I was in grad school, I was more involved with NERSA, the National Intramural Recreational Sports Association, because that's what all the campus rec, all the campus rec, all the colleges, they're all involved with NERSA. Um, but obviously, once I got to the municipal side of things, and I'd been aware of traps. I'd got some scholarships from them in undergrad. And so and I think there was kind of a student branch at the time. When I was an undergrad, I wasn't involved with it, even though I should have been. I wish I would have been. But it was kind of low key. It wasn't as involved as it is now, like at what it's grown to currently. So I would say my real involvement was when I started with Bel Air. Obviously, they had some travel and training budget, and whenever they had the opportunity to send people to conferences to get professional certifications, as soon as I could get my CPRP, I tested for it like pretty much as soon as I could, knowing that was going to open up the door for me to have that justification to go to conferences, get the CEUs I needed to maintain it. And then, once you go get involved, start meeting people, start making friends, networking with, your colleagues across the state or in the region, it's easy to stay involved because you find so many other people that are sharing your passion and, they want you to be involved and they want to make sure that we're passing along kind of that institutional knowledge that they have to the next generation of young professionals. So.
Yeah. And now how is that program going today? And also, is there something similar for it in the Texas and traps?
So yeah, in traps right now we do have, like I said, we have we have a branch called the Future and Young Professionals branch. At the time, like I said, when I was an undergrad, it used to just be the student branch. And then in 2015, I think one of my colleagues and I kind of through the board had decided that we needed to revamp the way we were approaching some of our branches, and we wanted to have a young professionals branch, but we also still had the student branch. So there's kind of that, like, how do we merge these two? Because it kind of ties together. You want to have the college students to be able to come in and at least have some sort of comfort level with people in their branch. And so obviously the young professionals who just came out of college are the closest in terms of age and probably, some of the things that they've gone through or are currently going through in their young professional development. So we kind of merged the two into the young future and young professionals branch. And one of the programs that we started there as an initiative was the mentorship program, which we had modeled off of the American Academy of Parks and Recreation Association mentor program. And so, people have to apply for it. You pair a young professional or even a seasoned professional, as we call them, a superintendent or assistant director or director, with a student or someone who is just starting their professional career. And just as a way to kind of give them an informal introduction to someone who might be able to help them out on their path, on their journey, and kind of give them some insights and lessons that they've learned in order to get them to that where they are in their career. So that's something we started in 2016, I think was the first year we started doing that program.
Is that something you participate in still?
I am not currently participating in this year's. Sadly, I didn't submit my application in time, but I have gone through it a number of times. I had 3 mentees. I think we do it in like a kind of a 2-year cycle. But I had 3 mentees that I've worked with over the years, and they still keep in touch with all of them. Either occasionally I'll get a phone call or a text, say, hey, I got something going on. You got a couple minutes to talk about it, or we'll run into each other at a conference and catch up. And it's a really cool, just a relationship that you build and kind of maintain over time, even when the formal program ends. Like I said, at any time they know they can reach out to me and I'm happy to talk them through whatever issue that they're going through, or provide insight on if they're kind of at a fork in their path of their career, trying to determine, what makes sense. I'm always happy to be there and lend an ear and give them some of the insights that I've had in my career. And that also just comes from what people did for me. When I was a young professional, I didn't necessarily have the formal mentor program to go through, but obviously I've always had my dad to lean on. I can call him for anything, but even more so than that, just the people that I met that were associates of his over the years. There's a number of people that I can pick up the phone and call and say, hey, have you guys had this issue before? How did you handle it? Or if it's a personal thing, like, hey, I'm looking at, am I going to go to the assistant director role? Am I going to go to a director role? What are your thoughts? And, just kind of picking their brains on anything really. So it's a really great program, especially for the young professionals that come in and not feel intimidated that they can't talk to a director or an assistant director about something. Because really that's what we're here. We're here to help guide them. We need the next generation to come behind us and make sure we're staying relevant as an industry and passing along our information and our all of our data. And
Yeah. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about the different background that everybody that you've seen people come from, because there's so many ways that you can find yourself involved in Parks and Rec. You kind of came through the athletic side, plus you had a family member. But what are the different backgrounds that you've seen in your colleagues come from?
Well, I know a big one that we have, and you see it typically more on the special event side. You get a lot of people with marketing backgrounds that were marketing majors or business majors in college, and then they get into special event planning, or they do, social media for a department and get dragged into special event planning. Everyone always does somehow. One of my current recreation coordinators, his background is in psychology.
That's nice.
Yeah, so his formal degree is psychology, but he was working in College Station as a camp coordinator for their Parks and Rec program, and decided he liked it more than trying to psychoanalyze people all the time. So informally, we use him to psychoanalyze people all the time, crazy customers, and when we're interviewing new potential interview candidates. But it's interesting because he probably never thought in a million years when he was studying psychology that he would be running Parks and Recreation programs. So
I see that as being one of the huge relevant degrees in everything, as especially in social media and marketing and communication. Pretty much anytime there's people involved, that major is going to come in handy.
No, it really has. It really has. Anytime we're like kind of questionable on a potential candidate or a new vendor for a program or something like that, he usually has a different insight that we can rely on to kind of give us something else to think about that we may not have considered from our traditional perspective. So,
well, kind of like in when it comes to psychology, there's so much that's not being communicated in the words that you're using, the words that you choose. There's body language, there's tonality, there's their background, their history, and you might think, well, man, nothing they said is adding up to why they made that decision or why they're so bent out of shape. And it's everything they're not saying that you're not catching on to. It's kind of like working with cities. Like, you think you put everything together and you just got a big no, and it just didn't make any sense. It's always because there's something going on that you're not privy to.
Some political thing in the background that, But yeah, shout out to Isaiah, our recreation coordinator. He's really good at helping us out with figuring out when there's something maybe amiss or awry that no one else is noticing. So
yeah, every park department should have a therapist on staff to help.
Absolutely.
Grease the wheel. Well, look, we're going to take a little short commercial break for, and I say commercial. This is actually so we have 6 video editors that work full time for the Daily Parks and Rec show, and they create whatever we want them to. And this last round of videos was all around, I want the target market is going to be a high school age kid thinking about what they're going to do for a career, what major they're going to pursue, what university they're going to pursue. And we want to highlight Parks and Recreation as a career path, as a potential thing to consider. And so this was one of our top videos. Well, I say top videos. It's one of our top V1.0s. So we're trying to get this video out there. And by the way, a lot of these videos can be found on our YouTube channel under Career Path. Any department is welcome to use them. There's no copyright on them. We're throwing them out there as just, a resource for the industry to have. And if you want, and a good place to use these is during your orientation. Let's say you've got a bunch of summer workers coming in as lifeguards or camp counselors. You can, you're preparing them for working with you all summer. You can play this video and maybe you plant a seed for them to consider the major of Parks and Rec or a university program that they might have. So this one's 2 minutes and 29 seconds. Let me know what y'all think, and then we'll be right back right after.
Your career, your community, your legacy. Welcome to the Daily Parks and Recreation Show. Today, we're diving into one of the most rewarding and impactful career paths out there, Parks and Recreation. Are you unsure about your career path? Don't worry, we've all been there. But here's a thought. What if you could build a career that combines your love for the outdoors, creativity, and community impact? Did you know colleges like Indiana University, NC State, and Texas A&M offer Parks and Recreation degree programs? These courses prepare you for exciting careers, from urban park design to event planning and even environmental conservation. Careers in Parks and Recreation are as diverse as they are impactful. You could become a park manager, ensuring green spaces are accessible and beautiful, a recreation coordinator, organizing community events and sports leagues, an urban planner, designing parks that bring neighborhoods together, or even an environmental specialist, protecting natural resources for future generations. Parks and Recreation isn't just a career, it's a way to create lasting change. Whether it's through managing a local park or leading a conservation project, you're making a real difference. And here's the best part. Parks and Recreation is for everyone. Whether you love planning, designing, leading, or conserving, there's a role for you in this exciting field. Choosing Parks and Recreation means choosing a career full of purpose, passion, and possibilities. And you don't have to have all the answers right now. Just take that first step. Ready to get started? Explore programs at universities like Michigan State, Clemson, or the University of Utah. Discover the career that's waiting for you. Are you passionate about the outdoors? Curious about a career that makes a real impact? Or maybe you just love learning how Parks and Recreation bring communities together? Then it's time to subscribe and follow the Daily Parks and Rec Show.
There you go. That was our first stab at it.
Hey, that was wonderful. You got it all.
We were trying. We kept going back and forth. It's so fun working with digital artists. I didn't quite know where the show was going, but after a short time, I realized I wanted to be a place where digital artists kind of called home full time, and then we could point all their talent at Parks and Recreation. and man, we give them our problems, our ideas, our thoughts, and then they just make something like that. And then we go back and forth, and we're like, it'd be nice if it had this, and it'd be nice if, and I love being a part of the creative process. I can't wait to get, matter of fact, the next one I'm going to have, which you're welcome to participate, but I'm going to have several Parks and Rec directors like me as part of the creative process. So imagine you have, let's say, a competition, round one, or right now we're on round 4. And so they pick the topic. Maybe it's, special events. I don't know. We just pick a topic, or grant writing or something. And so that we give them all the parameters, and then they make a version 1. And then you have to go watch them and give them critiques and say, we'll do this, add this, take this away. And then just being a part of that creative process helps you just really think out, how do we represent this in 60 seconds?
Like a focus group kind of.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Except there's a room full of artists and they're ready to paint, but you got to tell them what you want them to paint.
That's right.
All right, so let's go into kind of what's going on in Katy, Texas. How does, you know, from when you started to today, what did that look like?
Well, when I started, we had 5 full-time staff. So we've grown a little bit. We're up to 9 full-time staff now. And when I started, the parks department was just the park system. We don't have a recreation center. Since then, so one of the first things, actually, I brought it up in the interview process. I noticed that the city didn't have a parks and recreation master plan, and the city's comprehensive plan was extremely outdated. I think it was almost on a 20-year. It was almost at the end of a 20-year kind of cycle. And so I kind of brought up the question in the interview process of, is there any plan to do Parks and Recreation, a master plan for the park system? And they said, actually, yes, we are about to update go through the comprehensive plan update process. And then as part of that, we will do the parks master plan as well. So one of the first major things I did when I got here was to be able to go through and kind of be a part of that first comprehensive Parks and Recreation. Ours is Parks, Trails, and Recreation Master Plan. One of the things that was kind of already on the radar before I started here was they had passed a $4.2 million parks bond in 2021, about 3 months before I started, focusing on building a trail system, which we had none at the time. And so we're actually in the process of, we're in the design process of that right now, to bring the city's first trail system to fruition. So that was a really interesting process to go through in terms of it was a blank slate. We had nothing before. So
That's
we
your
had to
first
come
trail
in
system?
and, really build out, what do we want our first parks master plan to look like?
Mm-hmm.
What should it include? What do our goals need to be? We had some big picture projects that we knew were coming down the line. So, how do we build those in a way that's, relevant, and also like not letting people think that we're like, hey, we're going to be able to knock all these goals out like this year, but like these are kind of the 5 to 7 year major projects that are going to be coming down the pipeline in the next few years. And so that was a really important thing to do, just in terms of having the support of, once the plan was approved, now anytime any project comes up that I can go back and tie in a goal or an objective from that plan, you already kind of have that built-in support from council because they're the ones that approved the master plan. And so I just go back and tie in and say, hey, this is a project. It's important. We've got some deferred maintenance in this area. We need to renovate this playground. We need to renovate this park. Here's how it ties back into our master plan. Here's the goal. Here's the objective specifically that it ties to. And usually there's, no questions asked. Just, all right, let's get it done.
Mm-hmm.
So that was super important. And I would say that's, with anything with Parks and Rec, anytime that you can have that planning, that long-term planning in the background done, or that you can go back and kind of lean on, is very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Since that time as well, our city had been undergoing some renovations to our historic downtown area. And as we were going through that process, the question of activating that space came up, and who's going to be in charge of activating that space. Well, of course, that eventually has fallen under Parks and Recreation. So we've picked up some historic town square. So we've got a whole new event space, kind of different programming wise from our parks. We can do things in the historic town square that we can't necessarily do in the parks. Because of existing city ordinance, whether it's events that might include alcohol, or just the scope of events that we can do are a little bit different there than what we can do in our park system. And so that's been exciting. And I have two new staff members that I've been able to pick up to help activate that space. We have some museums in the city that were previously under city administration, and those have since moved under the Parks and Recreation Department. So I oversee two museum facilities. And then we're also developing a new outdoor learning center that is currently under construction, but being a part of that process, kind of from acquisition of land and going through the construction administration, the design phases, being involved basically from the ground floor on that as we're going through this process. We're really excited once we get the construction on the facility done to be able to get our site work done and then hopefully open it up in spring of 26. But there's been, I mean, like when I got here, there was a lot of big picture projects that were kind of already in the queue, the trail system as well. Having no existing trail system to now we're going to build a 3.2 mile trail going down the Buffalo Bayou to get people from the north part of town down to the new downtown square, how that all ties in together. It's been really exciting, and it's just been great because, we've had great support from council, from administration, from the community. We get a lot of community engagement and community involvement in helping us make those decisions on what they want to see, what programming they want, and the support to, make sure that this is the project that we're going to do. This is what you want. And now we're going to make it happen. So it's been a whirlwind, to say the least, in the last almost 4 years, coming up on 4 years in June. It has been expansive in my growth, not only for our department, but also just my professional development growth, coming mainly from that recreation, programming, sports, athletics, facility management of a rec center side to now I'm doing park maintenance, park development, capital projects. It's been an interesting learning curve for sure.
Now, how is, so by the way, you have a gorgeous little downtown that's that square that's coming together. I think the last time I saw it, it was literally almost like a big construction project.
Yep.
The vendors were starting to pop in, but it had gotten, you could kind of see the vision from it. But I'm noticing, especially with a lot of people working remotely, there's a lot more remote jobs available where you just need a computer and internet connection, that people are moving back to smaller towns, not having to move to these big towns. And I see so many, like Katy, so many small town downtown developments that are starting to revitalize the downtown. And of course, this naturally got to fall under the Parks and Rec department.
Absolutely.
To develop this. Because who else you're going to give it to in the city?
Yeah.
So maybe talk a little bit about developing a downtown. That project had that had already started before you came to Katy, correct?
Some of the phasing had already, the design had already been underway. I wasn't really involved in the design process or even the construction process once it was already kind of underway whenever I was hired here. So I kind of have been on more of the back end of the finishing of the construction. And then, like I said, my primary focus has been on how do we, once we're done, how do we activate it and what are we going to do there? We've always, City of Katy's had the Katy Rice Harvest Festival. I think we're on our this year will be our 46th or 47th year. So that's been kind of our premier big event. That's like our standard big event for the city every year. And that's always historically been in the downtown area. And so, aside from that, which we always, knew was kind of what it was designed for, was, how do we get people down to the downtown businesses during the weekdays or on weekends when they might be having a slow day otherwise. We also have a visitor center down there, which is currently being renovated, and we're about to open up a new visitor center as well. So it's kind of all come together at the same time, where we've got the square renovated, we've got the visitor center that's about to be reopened. You've always had the Rice Harvest Festival down there. And we kind of started off a little bit slowly with some of our events. Like we did, I think the first year we activated, we had 6 events downtown, and it was kind of a learn as you go process. Like, let's see what works. Let's try out a couple of different formats, a couple of different ideas on activities, on, you know, what kind of user groups we want to have down there. Is it going to be more family focused? Is it going to be more of like the parents' night out focus? And so we kind of played with that first year. We offered kind of a wide array of events and programs. And so from there, we kind of learned, okay, let's focus in on at least half of our events should be family friendly, you know, have the whole family out, have stuff for the kids, have stuff for the parents to go shopping or whatever it is. And then, you know, have some sort of, maybe we do some more adult focus where it's like, you know, some music and some live music and food and beverages, whatever it is. So it's been kind of an interesting learning curve too, just kind of seeing what works for our community, what do they want to see, what are the events that have been a little more successful. And then anytime we can tie in our events with, like we did one this last year, cultural relevance, right? So obviously with Super Bowl coming up, I know, you know, you got the Chiefs, you got the Eagles, but one of the big talking points is Taylor Swift, right? Because she's dating Travis Kelce. She's always in the forefront of
who's that? Taylor Swift again?
Yeah. So we actually did an event last year, and when we first planned it, it was just going to be a karaoke night on the square. And when our new event coordinator came on board, she kind of was thinking about it, and she goes, you know, the date, I think it's like somewhat close to when she's releasing her Eras Tour album. What if we did like a Taylor Swift themed karaoke event? And at first I was like, no, that seems like kind of a silly thing. Well, this is why I don't plan events, because I was dead wrong on, you know, what it would turn out to be. And it ended up being an incredible turnout. We had, we were thinking it was going to be like moms out, you know, having the mom's night out thing. It was families, there was dads, there was 400 or 500 little girls running around in their Taylor Swift look-alike uniforms. And the line for karaoke was 70 or 80 people long, and It was all kids. I think there was one group of adults that got up and sang a Taylor Swift song. The rest of were kids singing the whole night. We ended up winning. We won a couple of awards for that event, and we're going to bring it back next year because the demand has been, I mean, so high to do something like that. People just love. So, you know, you got the natural, the cultural relevance of, you know, a pop superstar. We also did one last year to kind of kick off Katy High School football season. It's called the Champions on the Square event. And we came back and we brought back the most recent Katy High School championship football team. We brought back the Katy High School softball teams that have won state championships in the past. We had Coach Gary Joseph come out. It was almost like a big town pep rally type of event. And it was really cool because we had a number of people that had probably not come to our events in the past, but they did because it was Katy High School. The band was there, the football team was there, the softball team was there. We honored the first team that won a state championship in 1959. Our museum inside the Civic Center put together a whole exhibit on the year 1959. What were the things that were happening culturally in America at that time? And, you know, we had all the state championship trophies and a huge turnout because we were kind of honoring the culture of the city of Katy and its, you know, love for Katy High School football or Katy High School sports. And again, so just kind of learning as we go on, you know, what are the things that are really going to get the community engaged and get them involved and provide that experience that they can't get somewhere else that's not downtown Katy. So it's been a fun learning curve, and you know, this year we got some new things in the chamber for us to latch onto. So we're excited to see, you know, kind of where this year takes us on our event planning journey.
Yeah. Now I think your city finds itself in a position that many cities find themselves in, and that's that they're next to a big city. Katy, how far are you from Houston on the interstate?
Oh, probably from the Houston city limits, probably like 20 miles. But, on I-10, there used to be you would leave Houston, you would drive through Prairie, and you would get to Katy. Now it's all just
solid city.
It's all unincorporated Harris County or whatever it is.
Right.
And now everything to the west of us is also being developed. So even where Katy kind of used to be the end of the line is expanding past us now. So we've kind of been hemmed in, if you will, by all this new development happening to the north and to the west.
And so a lot of cities will find themselves as the Parks Department is kind of the only show in town. So they'll build these big complexes, they'll build a swimming pool, but there's also a ton of cities that find themselves right next to a big city. And so you almost have to, what's the point of us getting a big swimming pool when there's like 10 surrounding us, and not necessarily in our jurisdiction, but that people can drive 10 minutes to? How do you differentiate yourself, or how does that kind of change the facilities you choose to build because you've got so much around you?
So that's something we definitely looked at a lot when we were doing the master plan process, and also the overarching comprehensive plan for the city was, we do have, even in the city limits, we have Harris County parks. I can look out my window right now. Right across the street is my biggest park, Katy City Park, and right behind me is Arboretum, which is another park of mine. And then right across the parking lot is Mary Jo Peckham Park, which is a Harris County park. And they have a natatorium, and they have a little recreation facility, and they have a fishing pond. And so, we do look at, okay, what are the other amenities aside from what we already currently have? We have Mary Jo Peckham right here. What are they providing that we don't need to duplicate? There's another park just down the road called Malcolm Beckendorf Park. That's a Harris County park. What do they have there that's similar to what we have? Obviously we don't need to duplicate. We're not trying to, I'm trying not to, compete with every other jurisdiction or the local, new neighborhood that's being built with a huge swimming pool or splash pad. We have Typhoon, Texas. We have a commercial water park in the city limits. So do we really need to build a pool? Do we need to build a splash pad? We kind of have those amenities built in. So I think that was going back to, kind of the long-term and strategic planning is really just that understanding of what's already there. What do we not need to duplicate? And then, internally with what we do have in our park system, where are we falling short? Even with Harris County or even with these new neighborhoods that are being built, there are like when we talked about the outdoor learning center that we're building, we did notice that there was kind of a shortage of, undeveloped natural space for people to go out and kind of observe wildlife or do birding. And so that's kind of what that space is going to be focused on is, educating kids on native plant species, the history of kind of the Katy Prairie. Before it all got developed into neighborhoods, it used to be just a big giant prairie. And that's why we had all the geese coming in. Katy used to be the geese capital, rice harvest farming, kind of just the change that's happened over time to the area, and a way to kind of educate people on this is what it used to be out here before it was 15,000 homes being built.
Right.
So we look at all those things, where are things that we don't have that would enhance our current park system without, putting us at odds with our neighbors from Harris County or, like I said, duplicating services or amenities that we may not need to duplicate.
All right. So as we kind of coming towards the end of the show, I wanted to see what your thoughts are around the future of Parks and Rec nationwide, state, in Texas, and also locally for you.
Well, I think the big thing for me, and, as terrible as it was overall, COVID really, I think, had a positive impact on our industry as a whole. People weren't able to go out and do things that they had historically been doing. Really one of the only outlets they had was to go out and be out in a park, be outside away from people. And so it's interesting how things have kind of shifted, and now people are, I think, politicians and decision makers have shifted their mindset, and I think parks are really kind of being viewed now more as truly critical infrastructure in terms of local government, cities, just the same as public safety and streets and all that. And I think that's very helpful for us in terms of being able to go out and maybe ask for project enhancements or park enhancements that we may not have been able to get prior to COVID. Now you can go back and kind of say, hey, look, we know people are using our parks more. We know people value that time outside more. Here's why I think we can spend some more money on enhancing this park, or acquiring some new park land. And again, looking at all those different things, you making sure we have parks that are more for the active, the youth sports, the pickleball players, the tennis, but also those spaces that are quiet and kind of more focused on natural beauty and kind of being able to go and reflect on, just some quiet time in nature. But, obviously big trends right now seem to be still pickleball. So we're working on a pickleball project right now. I know a lot of parks agencies are kind of in that space where they're considering going to like turf fields versus upgrading their, natural surfaces, stuff like that. So for me, that's kind of where we're at is catching up on deferred maintenance from stuff that's just been left alone for a long time. And then here's some cool new ideas that other cities are doing that I think would really enhance our quality of life. And these are the trends that we're seeing nationally, and using that to kind of help build our case on why we should do it here in Katy.
Yeah, I'd love to get you back on the show on our Maintenance Monday. Where I don't know if we'll be able to launch it, especially if I end up going to the Texas convention. I might need your help getting permission to go. If I can get myself freed up, I don't even know who to ask permission to. I knew the executive director back in the day, I think, but she retired.
Dr. Lord?
Yeah. So I don't even know who's running it now. And a lot of the other associations I've attended, I was personal friends with the ED, so they were like, yeah, just come set up,
I can definitely send you the contact information for the TRAPS executive director for Aaron.
Yeah. I'd love to just come and really raise awareness to a couple of things. First, the industry, because this thing blasts out nationwide to all our platforms, but also the stuff that's going on in Texas, man. If you haven't been to that state convention, and maybe if you can't make a national convention, I would say that's a good one to attend.
Absolutely.
If you can't, like say you're in Arizona and you can't make it to Orlando, drive over, or from Oklahoma.
We do get a lot of the guys from Oklahoma and Louisiana and occasionally from Arkansas coming, depending on where it is, geographically. Sometimes it makes more sense to them to cross the state lines.
Yeah, well, matter of fact, I saw a lot of Breck people there. They were Baton Rouge, Parks and Rec's one of the big ones we have in our state. They go to that one. And then I met some guys from Oklahoma, which is pretty much part of Texas. It feels like it, at least, especially up in Fort Worth. That pretty much is the same people, so to speak. But well, yeah, thank you for coming on the show. Love your story. Love Katy. It's just a great little town right outside of Houston, west of Houston. 20 minutes on I-10. So if you haven't been there, and then what's the name of that big festival again, and when is it?
Katy Rice Harvest Festival. It is the second weekend in October every year.
There we go.
Right during the state fair. So, you got to pick and choose which one you're going to go to.
That's it. That'd be a great event to attend. But, and again, if you're listening to this and you're a director and you would like to use any content we produce for the community, for the industry, and you want like a digital copy of it that's not on YouTube, or just hit me up on LinkedIn and I'll be happy to send you whichever one you want. And y'all, it's free. It's just for y'all to use to help help high school and college kids consider this industry as a place to hang their hat and make a difference in your community. And I think Kevin's a great example of the impact he can have, the fulfillment he has, and his dad wasn't pushing him too hard. I think he found this on his own.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, appreciate you being on the show, and hopefully I can see you in a few weeks in Texas.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Craig.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye. All right. So that was Kevin Browne over in Katy, Texas. Great job. Great job, Kevin. He's one of the guys that we want to kind of hold up as a model citizen, model director. Great path, doing it right. Came up using all the state association stuff, coming up even had a family member doing it, got his master's in it, had more of an athletic background. And now he's got a terrific city, Texas City, right outside of Houston. And so if you're a college kid or you're a high school kid and you're, involved in sports, you're, either athletics or programming, or want to make a difference in your community, this is a great episode for you to possibly see, hey, Kevin looked a lot like me when I was, or, his high school and college experience is very similar to mine. And so maybe you should check out A&M. There's a lot of really good colleges that are offering good degrees. Maybe you should take a tour of their facilities and their curriculum, because it really is a good career choice. And so I'm going to keep pushing these career path videos out to the community. I'm going to close with, let's see, I think I have another one here. Yeah, this one looks pretty good. And let me know what y'all think. Now, these are all version 1.0. So if you, I would love some feedback, especially from high schoolers, people that are, that's the target market, right? So we're like 16, 17, 18, 19-year-old kids that are at the point where they're considering what they're going to do with the rest of their life. And so we want to make sure it's kind of geared towards them. And so help me create version 2.0. And then we just keep iterating. This is kind of like iPhone 1. We want to get to iPhone 16 or whatever number we're at as quickly as possible. So we'll go ahead and close out with this one. And then we'll see y'all here again tomorrow. Let me see who I have tomorrow while I got my calendar up. Tomorrow is Jason Olson. And he, he is, I'm trying to think what's not showing me what city he's a part of. But anyway, he's coming on the show tomorrow. So looking forward to that. But we are here every day, 12 noon Eastern, 11 Central, which is my time in New Orleans. And Monday through Friday, putting out great content for Parks and Recreation. And so if you'd like to come on the show, or if you'd like to recommend somebody come on the show, please reach out to me. I do a lot of networking mostly on LinkedIn, but you can hit me up on X or any of the other stuff. This airs live on our X account. Please like and follow us on our LinkedIn and Facebook page, because those are newer pages. We don't have quite the group to go live on those channels. That should be solved in the next probably 30 to 60 days. We were also the founders of Parks and Rec Done Right Facebook group, which is almost 5,000 Parks and Rec professionals. And so we rebranded as the Daily Parks and Rec Show. So we've got a lot of people in community in there as well. If you're a part of that, same people. But I will see y'all again here tomorrow. Y'all have a great day. Thanks. Bye.
Hi there. Have you ever stopped to think about the magic of parks? The laughter of kids on a swing, the joy of family picnics, or even the peaceful moments on a hiking trail? What if you could be the one creating those moments? Imagine a career where you get to design vibrant spaces, host exciting events, and protect the beauty of nature for everyone to enjoy. Parks and Recreation isn't just a job. It's a chance to leave your mark on the world and create memories that last a lifetime. Did you know that colleges across the U.S. offer amazing degrees to help you launch a career in Parks and Recreation? From urban planning to environmental conservation, these programs equip you to make a real impact in your community. Parks and Recreation professionals across America are building legacies and transforming lives. Now it's your turn. Want to know more? Head to our YouTube channel, The Daily Parks and Rec Show, where we share stories, advice, and inspiration from those shaping our parks and communities. Don't miss out. Follow us, subscribe, and join the movement.
Welcome to the Daily Parks and Rec Show. As Craig LeBlanc from the Daily Parks and Recreation Show says, parks and recreation aren't just spaces, they're the soul of our communities. Across America, parks provide more than just a scenic escape. They're places where people connect, stay active, and create lasting memories. Parks promote physical health with trails, sports fields, and playgrounds while boosting mental well-being through the calming effects of nature. Recreation programs bring communities together, offering everything from fitness classes to cultural events. And as Craig often highlights, parks also play a key role in protecting the environment and driving local economies by attracting visitors and increasing property values. Whether it's a family picnic, a weekend hike, or simply enjoying the outdoors, parks and recreation are where life happens. Want to dive deeper into the stories behind America's parks? Tune in to the Daily Parks and Recreation Show with Craig LeBlanc for inspiring insights, tips, and updates about the spaces that bring us all together.